Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Den podcast. Obviously, this has not been around for a while. We're restarting it, we're rebranding, we're going again, and we're just going to try and make it even bigger and better. Obviously, as always, it's brought to you by the AAW Network. My name's Sam. I'm the producer for the Fantasy Den, but you will see me here and there involved with this as and when we need me to be around. For the first few episodes, we are going to have me around. And I am joined with, as you'll see, obviously, before we did this, last year sometime, we had a few different people who you would have recognized. Gary probably would have been on before. We've got a whole new set of co-hosts. We've got Liam, and and I'm going to get this right if I can. Is it Kiarn?
Close enough, mate. Yeah, Kiarn. We'll go with. I get called all sorts, so Kiarn's fine. Honestly, mate.
Okay. Right. Obviously, guys, thank you for joining the Fantasy Den. It's great to have you, and hopefully over this year and future years, we're going to be able to talk about loads to do with fantasy football. How are we both doing tonight? How are we feeling about first podcast together?
Good. Little bit of nerves, pre-match nerves, but yeah, no, good. Hope I come across it all right. But yeah, I'm
No,
excited to just chat everything fantasy. I'm just forgetting about there might be people watching when this goes out. Talking to some mates about the thing I am obsessed about.
no, exactly. Same here. Been thinking about it all day at work, thinking, right, am I nervous? Am I not nervous? But no, like I can't speak. There you go. Excited to get started. Like I said, looking forward to kind of speaking about fantasy. We all play it. We all love it. And yeah, hopefully it's something we can do for a good few years and carry on with it, eh?
Yeah, hopefully we can make it as big and as and enjoyable as obviously as we get on. We'll learn more about each other and just more about how we work and the dynamic. What I thought we'd do first, just as a little introduction, just kind of to do kind of I suppose an introduction about who we are, our backgrounds, the teams we support, and such. I'll start with myself. So my name's Sam. People who watch the AAW network will see me. I do College Pod, I do Hurdle the Line, I do all sorts. Um, they probably know all about me. I'm an LA Rams fan. I'm a Texas Longhorns fan. I started watching NFL 20, about 2017, 2018. So the first Super Bowl I watched was the infamous Patriots Falcons 23-8 28-3 turnaround. So that was my first introduction to NFL. And pretty much the year after was when I got into fantasy football before I'd even chosen a team. My mate was big into fantasy and I sort of did it for normal football. So I ended up, yeah, just getting involved with fantasy football. Started off on the NFL app and eventually found Sleeper and joined a million different leagues after that. And yeah, now I run the Argyle Charity Bowl and run a few variant leagues and such. Um, do way too much fantasy, pretty much. So that's me. I don't know who wants to go next and tell us
I
a
don't
bit
mind going
about
next.
themselves.
Yeah, I don't mind going next. So, my name's Liam. I my first me getting into American football was I'm going to show my age a little bit now, but 30 years ago roughly. So it used to be this going back a long time when the only football you could really watch, American football you could really watch was Monday Night Football on Channel 5. So my dad would tape it. So again, showing my age. Sorry about that, guys. He would tape it, and throughout the week, me, my dad, and my brother would watch it like half an hour here, half an hour there, fast forward through adverts and stuff like that to watch that Monday Night Football. So I remember that. I don't really remember what was going on and all that sort of stuff. I just remember the bright coloured jerseys and just like the fans going wild, and I sort of got hooked on it. And then I had a bit of a spell of not really watching, and I got back into it probably when I was about 14, 15, and I started playing a little bit of fantasy American football on Yahoo. Didn't really know what I was doing on it, but I really like putting this team together, trying to trade with other people, random people in America, and all this sort of stuff. And then um, a little bit further on from that, we got into a few of my mates got together and started like our main home league. It's been ongoing for about 10 years now, and then I've from there just I think Sleep has helped because Sleep is such a good app to play on. And I'm now in. I've probably got about 4 or 5 leagues that are like my mainstays, and each year I'm adding a league or two. So my missus is starting to get fed up of me talking her head off about it. She doesn't know what leagues I'm in. She's worried if it's an obsession, and yeah, it is. It's massive obsession. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but my team is the Miami Dolphins, so hence you can understand why I've not mentioned it. It's a bit of a mess right now. I've got Ace Ventura to blame for that. I watched Ace Ventura as a kid, and then he was in the Miami Dolphins stadium, and Dan Marino was in it. So I was like, oh, that's my team. And I've not had a hell of a lot to shout about since. But yeah, and it's not getting any better this off season.
No, it's a bit of a yeah.
It's a tough
It's a
watch.
shame because obviously Miami kind of had a good period, probably
2, 3 years ago was quite good.
yeah, and then
Hill, Waddle, Achan coming in. Tua looked like he could be a genuine quarterback, and the offense was exciting to watch. The defense wasn't very good, so it was high scoring, and then all of a sudden it just fell apart.
yeah,
We'll talk about what we're left with.
yeah,
The rookie
Yeah,
draft is
so
what I'm looking forward to.
yeah, so with me, kind of similar to Sam, I've played fantasy football since I was about 13, and not in terms of NFL fantasy, fantasy Premier League. I do play fantasy NBA, so anything fantasy related, fantasy mad into everything. In terms of sports, football mad, NFL mad, NBA mad. I love my boxing, I love my MMA, so kind of interested in all sports really. With the NFL, kind of got into it when I was probably 19. I'd found myself in hospital, unfortunately, and I took my iPad in with me and that kind of just doom scrolling on YouTube as you do. Found myself watching Bill's highlights. I'll be honest, I can't remember what game it was in particular, but I just thought, right, found it quite interesting. Obviously, I think prior to that, with the NFL, I've always thought it was kind of boring. But I think that's because I've always thought things like rugby and stuff were boring until I gave it a proper go. Then totally fell in love with it. Didn't do fantasy until a few years back. I've only been doing fantasy for 4 or 5 years now. Yeah, again, started on the NFL app. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. My first year, I was lucky enough to get CMC. Traded him away about 3 weeks into the season, just thinking, oh, I'm excited here. I'll do trades. Didn't have a clue. Luckily, we don't do that anymore. And if I'm lucky enough to get CMC this year, will not be traded. But yeah, kind of like I said, I'm into all kind of sports. Obviously, in the same division as Liam. Obviously, I'm a Bills fan. He's a Dolphins fan. Unfortunately for him, but yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. And then we've got Nick, who's on the college pod. He's a Pats fan. Thing we never seem to find many of his Jets fans.
Just need to get a Jets fan.
But I mean, no, to be fair, the guy runs the JTT Cup. He is a Jets fan, so if we can get him on,
Can we
might
get him
try
on
and
so I can feel better about things every so often?
maybe we might be able to. We should be able to get him on. But yeah, I think yeah, that's probably one of the very very few teams at the moment that I think everyone feels so much better about their own franchise when they see the Jets. Unfortunately,
My
but
my dad's a Browns fan, and that makes me feel a lot better about my team decisions all the time.
yeah.
And he's the most optimistic Browns fan on the planet, which is hilarious every single year.
Yeah, I mean, they'll always fall back on the fact they've got Miles Garrett, and you know he's an absolute monster. But yeah. So obviously, great to meet you guys. It'd be obviously we'll probably end up doing a bit more in terms of talking about our own teams and that as we go on. I think a few of our teams, or at least one of our teams, is going to be discussed today. Um, for everyone that's sort of there, obviously you'll have seen the title of the show is Deal or No Deal. We're going to look at the trades that have happened. I know we're a bit behind on the time, but we're going to do it from a fantasy perspective. We're going to look at the trades that have happened and how they will either be beneficial to the individual, how they'll impact in terms of their draft stock, will they go up, will they go down, and look at who the potential winners and losers are essentially. We'll start with trade winners. So obviously, I'll put it out to the floor in terms of different players. Obviously, there hasn't been too many trades, but I do think there's some really interesting ones that we can talk about and how they'll then impact um, the wider draft and their individual positions. So we'll start with because just someone that I think is probably going to be, I would say it's a big win in my opinion in terms of how he looks going forward, and that's Jalen Waddle. I personally think although I think he would have potentially benefited now Tyreek Hill has gone from the Dolphins, but I think his move to Denver is for him now is a really good move. Um, I think the one thing that I think Denver have had with Bo Nix obviously being there now, it'll be his third year. My look on it is that to me, him going into Denver, he becomes wide receiver one. This is his opportunity to prove himself as a wide receiver one now because he's always been the the second guy to Tyreek Hill and all of that, but he's always put up good numbers. So I suppose from that perspective, do we think that he'll put greater numbers at Denver, or do we think that he'll stay about where he is, but will kind of might improve in terms of the team around him? Maybe someone like a Bo Nix having someone who can regularly go to.
Um, I'm a bit on the fence with this trade. Like, I think I look at it from two lenses. One, redraft, I'm a little bit on the fence. Dynasty, I think absolute win for him long term because the wide receiver room has got like Cortland Sutton's been the one for quite a while. He's obviously getting a little bit older. Will they keep him on? And I think Waddle slots into that, but I don't know is my answer because obviously coming from the Finns where you would expect him to get targeted heavily week in, week out to a team that has got four, maybe five pass catchers that in that offense who are all going to be relatively hungry for the ball. Like I don't know, I'm a bit on the fence with that, and I could see it going both ways. Really, like I could see him doing exactly what you said, becoming a true wide receiver one in a very good offense. I mean, the came well, basically third, fourth place in the this year. You could see him really taking that step on and being like a true wide receiver one in terms of in that team and potentially in fantasy. But I'm just a little bit on the fence right now, and I'm not. Maybe I'm a bitter because I've lost my guy, and I've seen the wide receiver room empty out. So I don't know, but yeah, I'm a little bit on the fence about that at the moment. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. Could be a slow start to the season for him potentially.
Yeah, I mean, we
No,
don't know actually what's happening with Bo Nix yet, whether he's going to be ready for the start of the season or not. I would assume, with it only being a broken ankle, that he probably will be.
Yeah.
But again, ankle breaks, although they won't necessarily be long term, it's how's his movement going to change at the start of the season and that. And like with anything, he could not develop a good relationship with Waddle, and Waddle then ends up becoming just another wide receiver in that group. So it is hard to sort of determine whether he's going to do well or not. But um, just to kind of give you an idea from last year, I can find his information that I had before. He was, in terms of with wide receivers, he finished wide receiver 24
Yeah, I thought
in
he
a
was.
regular PPR year. I think that's a
yeah.
regular PPR league. I've just
Yeah,
picked one of my random leagues, so I assumed that it was PPR.
Yeah, I've got him down between 22 and 24, kind of varies. But I'm kind of the same with you, Liam. I'm a bit on the fence about it. In terms of a football side of things, it's great for him. A big quarterback upgrade. He gets to play for a contender. That's not the Dolphins in reality. But from a fantasy point of view, I have got a few concerns. But like I said, first of all, he is the wide receiver one in that room. But that doesn't take away the fact that Cortland Sutton's still on the team. Marvin Mims is still on the team. Troy Franklin's still on the team. In terms of will he probably lead that team in targets? Yes, but I can't see that being a ridiculous number of targets. And kind of, I know this is more from a fantasy point of view. When it comes to the red zone, especially, that's where Cortland Sutton's bread and butter is. He's a big receiver. I can't see him really losing many red zone targets to Jalen Waddle. With Waddle is obviously more of a big play guy, yards after the catch guy, rather than that red zone threat. So, like I said, in terms of a football side of things, I think it's great. In terms of fantasy, I'm not sure kind of where I'm at with it. Is it going to be better than being in Miami? Yeah. But is it kind of, I don't think this trade takes him to one of the elite must have receivers in fantasy.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. I don't see him. I don't see him breaking the top 10. But I think that's, I mean, even if you look at Cortland Sutton last year, he was only wide receiver 14-ish,
Yeah,
I think
14.
13 to 15. And again, he only managed 7 touchdowns last year,
Yeah,
and accumulated sort of 220 odd points. Waddle, where he was, although for the majority of that last year, he's sort of been sort of a wide receiver one, but
well, in the absence
you
of
know,
Tyreek, obviously, yeah.
yeah. But I mean, unfortunately, it's just I think because of how poor just the Dolphins had been that year, it was just It's hard to say that there was a wide receiver one because there was so many games where
Yeah.
just they weren't reaching anyone,
Yeah.
and they were messing on with quarterbacks and all sorts. So
I was going to say, I think in reality on the Dolphins, Devon A-Chain was running back one and wide receiver one for them.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good point. Like Achan was like the focus. Like, I mean, your point there about like in the red zone, like that, I think that's probably one of the things I noticed the last couple of seasons with Waddle. He didn't really get a lot of touchdowns in that area. So like going into Denver with Sutton, who is, I know last year was maybe a down year, but he's more of a target there. And also RJ Harvey seemed to get quite a lot of touches and catches in and around that area
yeah,
for scores. I've actually gone a little bit not far off what you guys think, but I've gone in about like wide receiver 25 to 30, and I might
yeah,
look daft on that one, but like I just can't see a world, not year one, year two maybe, but not year one where I can see him dropping into being a steady wide receiver two. I've
yeah.
got him more of a flex spot or wide receiver free sort of player, which is a nice player to have. But yeah,
Luxury, yeah,
yeah. And in the draft, I kind of get the feeling if you're people are looking at it, if you're trading Miami for Denver, people are gonna your stock's gonna go up, I believe. So people might get a little bit like, well, he's just gone there, they've gone for him, they've given up a first round draft pick plus a few other later picks.
yeah,
And I think he'd be drafted too high for where I personally would
yeah.
like to take him.
Mhm.
And I'd probably very much look away from him. And there's a few players that we'll probably discuss later who I'd be much prefer to have in and around the area. I think Waddle will go or slightly after Waddle.
Yeah, I was just going to say, but I know there's obviously someone we're going to speak about shortly, who's going to a new team, and I have them kind of neck and neck, like you said, in between the 20 and 30 range. I don't think it's a case of Jalen Waddle's going to be pushed into conversations like where Drake London sits, say maybe wide receiver 10 through to 12, or the Nico Collins area. I don't think he's that quality, that level for fantasy. Like I said, in year 2, year 3, who knows? But kind of first year in, new team, there's still target competition. I can't see it being a case of he's kind of a top 15 guy for fantasy. I might be
I,
wrong, but
No, I
I think
agree.
the only thing that probably benefits him in like we mentioned with Devon Acham being at Miami, obviously Miami did try and do much more of a run game because they had one of the best running backs in the league. And as good as Denver can be on the run, I don't think it's their strong suit. I think, RJ Harvey's he's looked okay last year. And who else did they have? They have Dobbins.
Dobbins is
No,
right.
J.K. Dobbins, but he got
yeah,
hurt.
and obviously he spent a good part of it injured and then came in, did all right when he came in, but nothing sort of crazy. I think the struggle for me with that is the fact that they don't have a running game, so they are pass first. And I think when you've got a weapon like Waddle, where again, I think he could benefit because people will be looking at Cortland Sutton and thinking he's red zone threat. We're going to have to make sure we double team, and that may open a few windows for Waddle.
Yeah.
And that might be where he sort of picks up points. The fact that him and Cortland have very similar yards and very similar touchdowns from last year, and there was only probably the fact that he had more receptions, especially for a PPR league. Obviously,
Yeah,
the receptions mean more. I think that there could. It wouldn't surprise me if Waddle got up, like improved on his current position, and if he moved up to the sort of the 18 mark. But like, I do agree, he could quite easily be wide receiver 30. So I think he is. He can be. He has been like this for a while. He's very boom or bust. Some weeks he can put up 100-yard games and a couple of touchdowns, and other times he's barely involved. So I still don't put him in, if we're talking like top 12, because usually I'm looking at sort of 12 team leagues.
yeah,
I don't see him being drafted within those first 12 picks. He might be because of the fact that he's got the trade, but I certainly wouldn't be looking at him there. I'd be looking at probably, if I'm drafting my second wide receiver towards the back end, I'm probably looking at him maybe there. So like that sort of 24 mark and hoping that I get some upside with him. But I certainly wouldn't be thinking he's breaking the top. There's no way he'll break the top 10. He just isn't that type of receiver.
Anybody taking him is like punting. I think that he's going to take that step up, and that step up we've kind of all in agreeing is probably maybe wide receiver 15 to 18. To me, that's a bit of a gamble to try because at the value you're going to get him for, you're not going to get that much of a boost really. So yeah, I think it's a bit of a. I think it's one where I personally would just like to let other people have that dilemma. I've got him in a few dynasty leagues, and he's a bit of a. What do I do with him? Do I try and capitalize on this trade now? And I'm on the fence because you don't want to give somebody away and then they end up going and showing you what they can do. But equally, I'm a little bit like that has been in a few conversations of mine of trying to move him on for somebody else.
Do you what do you think he would attract in a dynasty league in terms of value? Is he still, because obviously I mean I've seen him be traded for varying things over the years in terms of different years. I mean, if I just go on to, that's not a good example. He got drafted round 3 in that one. But again, in sometimes I've seen times where he has been traded away for a first round pick, and there are other times I've seen him gone for like a 2 seconds and then sometimes second and third. So do we see him still having that upside of being worth a first, or do we think that he is, you know, you'd be lucky to get a first for him, and it's more likely like a high second, maybe sort of 2 mid-seconds.
Yeah.
Where do we think his value is
I
there?
think with that indie immediate, kind of if you were to get offered a first round pick, you'd bite your hand off for it. That is a kind of I know with Dynasty we're looking a bit longer term, 2, 3 years down the line. But right now, if you could get a first round pick for someone who's kind of like you said, we don't really know where they're going to be sitting first year on a new team, you'd take it. But like you said, something like where 2 seconds or a second and a third, or like even a player attached with a second seems a bit more realistic than a first anyway.
I think it depends on the class as well. Like, I mean, one of the like options you could do with Waddle is you could go punt your to get a 2027 first, so you give somebody a player now and you don't get anything back. That might be more like appealing, and you're sort of hoping on that draft class. But this draft class here has got like what 4, 5, 6 potentially quite good wide receivers that'll go in the first round. Me personally, I'd want to replace him with somebody else. So um, I probably wouldn't look to move him for much less than, well, I'd look to like a back end first as a sort of payment. Anything less than that, I kind of feel like you just suck it and see and you wait to see what happens. And that's kind of the way you just sit on him. There's no point in giving away for the sake of it. I personally, as well, if somebody wanted like a couple of seconds for him, I would be biting the hands off because I think it's like that's where I'm at. I'm on that fence. So like a couple of seconds, I think they're real punts, whereas Waddle, at least you know he's an established player
Yeah, and I think with Dynasty, it also just depends on your
situation.
where you're sat. And if you're drafting within the first 3, 4 picks this year, and someone offers you a late first, you're probably going to take it because you know you're going to probably get a Tyson or a or a Tate or a
Mm,
Lemon early, and then you can use that back end pick to maybe bring in, you know, potentially someone like a Price or a
yeah,
Conception or someone like that who's a bit more of a flyer that you don't know where he's going, or maybe someone like a Sadiq where depending on where he goes, it could be that he could make an impact.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think it's if I'm at the back end of the first and someone offers me another first, I probably wouldn't. I'd rather keep him and just hope he does okay because you've obviously already got a good enough team that you can hold on to him.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if I'm drafting 1 to 4, I'm probably getting rid. Um, great. What we'll do is we'll go on to the next. We're on wide receivers. We'll just look at a few more. Um, we'll go on to DJ Moore. Obviously, been drafted. He's obviously been traded to the Buffalo Bills. Um, how do we think he'll fare up? Because he is for years burned me. I've drafted him in a lot of leagues because one, I like him, and two, I always expect him to do well, and then he just doesn't deliver especially as sort of like a wide receiver too. Because I always think he's a wide receiver too for me in fantasy,
Yeah.
and every year he burns me. Do we think he is going to improve this year?
I think kind of in a vacuum, like, yeah, he will. In terms of, like you said, he is the clear wide receiver one in Buffalo. He's going to a better team. He's playing with a better quarterback. As much as I like Caleb, he is playing with a better quarterback. Like I said, kind of similar with Jalen Model. There just still is them kind of concerns. Obviously, I know DJ Moore has worked with Joe Brady before in Carolina, but my kind of issue is with ourselves in Buffalo, it's like an everybody eats offense. There's not kind of, I know because there's been a lack of the guy, but kind of I can't see DJ Moore changing that in terms of like where he's having so many targets funneled to him rather than it still is a case of everybody eats. And I think as well the concern still kind of with we have such a good run game in Buffalo as well. We don't really need to lean on the pass in a lot of games. So it's kind of there will be games where he will be great, but I can't see it yet again being like, is he a wide receiver one or is he kind of a more of a wide receiver two, wide receiver three flex option for me personally?
I'm a little bit like excited about this. I don't know why. I mean, I know I'm sort of looking at it going, do we get a bit of a what happened with Stefan Diggs when he went from the Vikings across to the Bills? And obviously he became an incredible wide receiver. I don't think he'll ever go that high, but
Yeah.
or do we get what happened with Amari Cooper when he went there and we all thought, yes, Allen's finally got his number one wide receiver and he was awful. Now I kind of lean. I think he's quite a safe play. And I think he'll be quite good, but I'm sort of putting him in a similar like where we are with Waddle. It's always going to be exciting to get Josh Allen's number one target, and I do think he will genuinely be the number one target there. But what does that mean? What's his top tier? Again, is he about a mid wide receiver two, mid to late wide receiver two again? And that's all he's ever been in his career. He just looks a good route runner and he looks a good pass catcher. So you want him to have this season where he gets like 1,500 yards and 10 touchdowns, but it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's my biggest concern. And again, I was also burned by Amari Cooper
Yeah,
because I again I saw him go there. I thought, as good as Khalil Shakir has been at the Bills, I didn't think he was going to be the guy to step up. And then they brought in Amari Cooper, and I thought, great, we finally got a guy who's actually going to be like, because again, he was someone he was sort of languishing around sort of the DJ Moorish sort of area, but had that upside from when obviously he was at Dallas. And I just wanted him to do well. I really wanted him because again, I do kind of I do like I have like kind of a soft like for the Bills in a way. And it's just frustrated me how poor their wide receiver core has been, given the fact they have arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the league, into one of the top three in the league. It's just really frustrated me that they've never had the guy. I I'm going to reserve judgment because I know that I could easily be the sort of person that'll think, right, DJ Moore, this is it. This is the time to be that guy. Like I thought he was going to be at Chicago. Um, I can't. I will probably end up drafting him a lot, but I will be hoping that he goes as sort of I would say looking at around where he finished last year on points, around 32. That's
Yeah.
where I want to be picking him in terms of wide receiver 32 or somewhere between sort of 28 to 32. That's the range I'm looking at. So you're looking at, again, probably start to mid rounds in terms of the coming round in picks. I just can't. He'll be someone. If I can get him as a third wide receiver, I'll pick him up everywhere. If he's going at like what like essentially as the second wide receiver pick, I'm probably going to just leave him because I can't personally. I just can't deal with another year of expecting big things from DJ Moore and nothing happening.
yeah,
I do think he'll improve in terms of his numbers on last year. I mean, he was 682 yards, 50 receptions, and only 6 touchdowns. I
yeah.
think he has a lot better than that in him.
Yes.
He just, again, I think the best, if I go sort of through his history, the best he's ever been was wide receiver 6.
Yeah.
Mm. I was with
And that
Fields.
was when he saw his first year in Chicago.
Yeah.
I
Even more
don't
impressive that was with Justin Fields as well.
Yeah, but he was the
Yeah,
only target there, wasn't he? There wasn't
Yeah.
really a lot else there
yeah.
for him.
I don't see him reaching again. I don't see him reaching the heights of a 6.
No.
His next best season, 16, 16, 18.
I
I
could
could see
see
him
that.
getting back to that.
Could see that.
Yeah.
I mean,
But
I think on draft value, I think you get Josh Allen tax as soon as you're his number one
yeah,
Yeah.
receiver. I think he'll. I wouldn't be surprised if people aren't picking up like the 15th, 16th wide receiver off the board, which again is far too early for me. But for DJ Moore himself, he was dead and buried in that Chicago receiving room. Like he was everyone's buzzing about some of these younger players, and he was dead and buried. So for him and his fantasy value, it's gone from you probably could have picked him up for a mid to late second, especially in dynasty picks, to now people might want a late first.
Yeah.
yeah.
He was one of the players that I'm was umming and ahhing about should I try and offer Waddle for him, and I haven't done it because I think the age of Waddle and the circumstances probably slightly better there. But they're about level for me.
That's kind of just touching on what you mentioned there. Kind of a few of the concerns I've got is the fact that he will be turning 29 during the season, so he is on the older side of receivers. And like you said, obviously, kind of, I know last season was weird because he was behind, obviously, Adunze, Colston Loveland at times, and Luther Burden at times. Obviously, it's all great for their fantasy value. It's brilliant for them. But in terms of, obviously, he is the clear one in Buffalo, but he is older. Wide receivers do slow down. And it's like you said, other than that 1 year in 2023 where he was the wide receiver 6, kind of like you said, we've seen him at wide receiver 14 to 18 months. And then in the 30s and late 20s, it's kind of, can you expect a huge jump from someone at 29?
I could see him being like consistent again because you mentioned there he was 16, 16, 18. I can see him going back into there, but I'd say that's probably top level for him. Maybe has some spike weeks with Josh Allen when Josh Allen
Yeah.
throws his 3, 4, 5 touchdown weeks, and he maybe has a spike week there. But you've just touched on it there about the Bears receivers. I mean, they're a winner, aren't they, from this trade? Because you've got Loveland, Burden, and Adunze. Like I'm excited for all three of them
Yeah.
this year because DJ Moore and Zacchaeus have left the building, so that was
Yeah.
like I think I was looking it up around about 25% of the reception or the targets this year
Yeah.
gone, and I can't see the Bears spending a lot of money to replace those two going out. So to me, Loveland, Bird, and Adunze are probably bigger winners than DJ Moore off this
No,
trade.
that's what I've literally written down. I think the trade's better for the three younger guys in Chicago than it is in terms of a fantasy value than it is DJ Moore, especially because towards the tail end of last season we're seeing Colston Loveland come on leaps and bounds. Luther Burden look more and more comfortable kind of towards the end of the regular season and playoffs as well. So
I'm
exciting
excited for
times.
Loveland this year as well. Like I've kind of I've got on this little hype train, and I don't know, it's getting bigger and bigger, and I just kind of feel like could he step into that room of Trey McBride and Brock Bowers levels,
Yeah.
and Tyler Warren of course as well. Yeah, like I think I'm really excited for those three this year, and I think Caleb Williams will hopefully have his best year as well.
Fingers crossed.
So yeah. I think it's good. I think it's a good trade all round. I actually believe there's 5 winners in this trade. DJ Moore's value goes up. Josh Allen gets a good wide receiver, hopefully a good wide receiver one, and the three Bears receivers all win. So I think it's a good trade all
Yeah.
round.
Yeah, but I think that's the thing that is certainly part of it is the fact that it benefits everyone. I think you go back to the Jalen Waddle one. Does it benefit everyone? It benefits the player, probably benefits Bo Nix in terms of giving him another short receiver,
Yeah.
but it doesn't benefit. It
We can
doesn't
talk
benefit.
about that in a little bit. Who it
Yeah.
definitely doesn't benefit.
It obviously doesn't benefit. Obviously the Dolphins. So it's one of those situations. And I suppose we'll finish off with the last wide receiver. And I think this is. I mean, we'll probably talk more about this guy in terms of, from my perspective, in the losers column. But we'll talk about Michael Pittman and his move from Indianapolis to Pittsburgh. I didn't like this trade at all.
I'm with
The
you.
only reason that I liked it, as if we're going to talk about winners, is I really like Alec Pierce. And I thought he had his best season in Indy last year. And this trade will benefit him. I think he's going to be the biggest winner from it. And I think that because we were already starting to see Pittman kind of decrease in his value because obviously Tyler Warren came in. He was taking snaps left, right, and center. He was even being used as a running back at some points. Jonathan Taylor had arguably is one of his best year. I think probably one of, if not his best year. I think probably tied with another, or slightly less than another. Again, someone who has the ability to run and play as a back, receiving back as well. And Michael Pittman just lost everything in terms of he wasn't getting the same receptions. He almost, I would say, lost his wide receiver one status because the likes of Alec Pierce and obviously Tyler Warren were kind of taking that role. And again, he ended up finishing sort of around the Jalen Waddle period. That's sort of like what we see as sort of like that wide receiver one. And again, in terms of from a fantasy perspective, he wasn't. I mean, he had the start of the season, he was doing really well, but then the back end just kind of, probably to be honest, like the most of Indianapolis, were just dropping off towards the end. He wasn't picking up many points. I mean, he had, I think it was 80 receptions, which was 16 more than Waddle. His yardage was nearly 150 less, and one more touchdown. And if you look at his actual touchdowns in last year, they were all, let's see if I can find them. All of them were before the bye, apart from one, which was against KC in week 12.
I played him that week.
So I mean, the six of his 7 touchdowns were in the first 8 weeks, which was the first 8 weeks where the Colts were at their best.
Looked like the best team in football.
Yeah. And then, after that, 0-0 bye, then he had a 1 week. But even when you look at his targets, he was ranging between, okay, ignore the Arizona game, but anywhere from between 5 to 12 targets a game.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at after the bye, or even after that last game in terms of against Pittsburgh, after that against Atlanta, he had 2. He managed to get 8 against KC, where obviously he got the touchdown, and he had 12 against Jacksonville. But apart from that, it was 4, 5, 5, 3, 4. And even his receptions completely dipped off. So you just saw a gradual decline in his, and I get that was probably partly due to the fact that there was a decline in how the Colts were playing. But my real concern is that he's now going into a Steelers team who, he's now going to be, he's automatically wide receiver 2 because DK Metcalf's there.
Yeah.
They still have, I think Jono Smith might have gone now, but they still have Pat Freiermuth there, who does pick up a fair few targets. We don't even know who their quarterback's going to be because Aaron Rodgers then actually said that he's coming back yet. But when Aaron Rodgers was there, he still preferred the likes of Calvin Austin and a few others. So I don't see how this benefits him and benefits his positioning going forward.
No, I'm totally with you in all of that. Like, I think you've seen for Pittman over a few years now the decline, and everybody had hopes he was going to be a real stud wide receiver, and he just hasn't been. And maybe we're a little bit unfair on him because if Philip Rivers was throwing anybody the ball, their numbers would go down. And obviously, but even so, Daniel Jones, like, he's not renowned for being one of the better quarterbacks, and he was able to do what he was doing with that offense, and Pittman still wasn't doing a hell of a lot. And I don't believe the Rodgers situation. I've put here, can Rodgers supply 2 even top 30 wide receivers in an offense? And I don't think he can. I also, looking at the running backs they've got there, they've got Warren, who's a pass catching back, who's a decent running back. They've just brought in Rico Dowdle, so they're obviously going to use him.
Heavy run
You've still got Caleb Johnson, who I know he had an absolute nightmare last season and didn't really do anything, but new coach. Still high draft capital. Was he a second or third round running back or something like that? And I kind of feel like he will be brought into it at some point. So, like, are they going to be a run first offense as well? So you've got DK to compete with. You've got Rodgers, who's inconsistent at best. and you've got potentially a run first offense. So it doesn't look good for me with Pittman, and I struggle to see him being anywhere near a wide receiver three. I think it'd be wide receiver four or worse.
I think the only thing that plays in his favor. I mean, I'm just looking at the depth chart for the Steelers. You've got DK Metcalf, obviously clear number one. Then you've got Michael Pittman, Roman Wilson, and Ben Skowronek as the other wide receiver. I think he becomes wide receiver two by default because the rest are awful.
Yeah.
Roman Wilson maybe, but I mean,
2 years in the league, he's not done anything.
Ben Skowronek absolutely not. He was terrible for us. He's going to be terrible wherever he goes. A.T. Perry, John Reese Plumlee, Cole Burgess, Brandon Smith. Like these aren't players. They're at best special teams players. You've then still got Pat Fryermuth and Darnell Washington, who remember Darnell, he started to play a lot more.
Before the injury, was really, really good, wasn't it?
Yeah, and he started to, again, because his size and physicality was, it fit what I think Rodgers liked in terms of having someone reliable to just get him yards. So again, I think he's walking into a team that has so much uncertainty, and he could be the one that ends up, with him getting slightly older, he could be one that ends up falling by the wayside. But especially if Pittsburgh decide they want to bring in a wide receiver as well, there's plenty out there that could fit into one of those roles.
In the draft as well, like there's obviously quite a lot of depth in this draft for wide receivers. So there's like a lot of second, third, and fourth round wide receivers that you could see them bringing in, and like you said, Pittman could just drop away from being anything relevant.
Yeah, that's kind of. No, sorry, Danny. So that's what I kind of feel in terms of. I just put it's a loss, like kind of for him in terms of, like you already mentioned, it's going to a team where DK Metcalf plays, and to lean on what you said, Liam, in terms of Cam Rogers support two top 30 receivers. DK finished as the wide receiver, kind of 25 to 28 range. Didn't have an incredible year himself, so it's kind of he can barely support one, let alone two. And similar to the DJ Moore trade, I really think the big winner the skill players on the Colts, whether it's Tyler Warren, Josh Downs. I know we'll touch more on Alec Pierce when we speak about free agents there, but Alec Pierce is a really big winner from this trade to me.
I think Tyler Warren as well. I've put it out there. I'm going to say I think he's the biggest winner of all the trades that's gone on in the offseason for offensive skill players.
Yeah.
Because he was playing in that similar area as Pittman, and now Pittman's gone. So what Warren will do this year, it could be scary. And Pierce obviously will pick up when, like you said there, Kiarn, that we will pick up on that in the free agency one. But yeah, I can't see him where he suffers from this trade either. So it's a good trade for those players there. I mean, does it affect Daniel Jones when he's back on the field? Yeah, one less weapon.
It's a weird one because I feel like like you said, we don't really know. First of all, we don't know what Daniel Jones is going to look like coming off an Achilles. And with Daniel Jones last season, yes, it was great, but it was great for what we know Daniel Jones to be. I don't think Daniel Jones is, like you said, he's not kind of a top 10 guy in the league. And with a lot of their success earlier on, it was how dominant they were with the run game. And like even just to lead on it back, Tyler Warren was involved in the run game a lot as well. So it's kind of, I don't see it that way. Like I said, the only way I see it is Josh Downs will probably get more targets out the slot, and Alec Pierce's targets will likely only continue to go up. So it's kind of I don't really know how to value Daniel Jones. One, coming off the injury, and two, because I don't really think he's that good still.
I think we've seen the prime, what the best that Daniel Jones can offer in the first 8 weeks of the season.
Yeah.
And even before the injury, you've seen this sort of little bit of a decline into more the territory that we
more Daniel Jones.
Good shout about Josh Downs though, because I'd kind of forgotten about him. He sort of had a season last year where he fell off the planet, and I was thinking he was going to be some sort of like long shot to be like a really good late round pickup, and I think he was. I don't think he's relevant in many weeks at all.
And just to touch on the Colts as well, obviously, kind of someone I was like I said, I'm not really big on college football, but someone I'd heard a lot about because we'd always had the Bills mocked with them. Obviously, AD Mitchell's now been traded to the Jets, but that's another wide receiver not on the team. I know he had his drops and his issues, but kind of like I said, that's another wide receiver not on the team. So it's, like you said, it's kind of Josh Downs and Alec Pierce to lose at the minute.
Yeah. I mean, you look at their depth chart, you're probably looking at Nick Westbrook-Akine is probably your wide receiver 3 at the moment, like with Ashton Doolin, probably the two that sort of will be more like gadget players. They have got Laquan Treadwell there, obviously from previous times being at the Jags.
Just
He's just another guy, isn't he? He's a body. But I think that their biggest threat is Tyler Warren. It'll always be Tyler Warren. And I mean, even you go down their wide receiver, their tight ends. Mo Ali Cox, although he hasn't exactly lit the world up, he can still do a job. Drew Ogletree again can do a job. Won't be the main guy. Certainly won't be playing too many snaps, but will be there. And I didn't realise that. Where was he before? Yeah, I mean, they drafted Will. They had Will Mallory, who everyone thought was going to do all right, and he fell off the face of the planet. But yeah, it's like going from it's going from a good-ish position where you're probably going to stay where you are in Indy to, I would say, probably dropping out of the top 30 wide receivers and going to Pittsburgh because, like I say, DK was 25, and I think the next wide receiver in Pittsburgh. I mean, I'm just going down this list. There's no one up to wide receiver 45.
Yeah.
Josh Downs was 47, and there's no one above him. So you're looking at serious issues for me with Pittman. Before we go on to the next group, which I think these are more fun ones more than anything, I just wanted to do a little quiz with you, and it's not too difficult. It's just a little quiz question. But if I go back to where was it? Over the years, we've obviously had quite a few trades and things that have happened over the years. Has anyone, well, that's the bad way of wording it. Can you name a player who has finished who has been traded in the off season, and that following year finished as the number one in their position? Now there's two that did do that. Can you name them? I'll give you the years. So 2015 and 2016. So it's quite a while ago. Positions wise, it was running back was one of them in 2015 and wide receiver in 2016.
I think he might be going a bit too far back for my knowledge there. I was only 13 then. So.
Yeah, same.
So the trade itself, the 2015 trade was from the Eagles to the Bills.
Yes, that's LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah. So he was traded in 2015 from the Eagles to the Bills. Finished number one wide receiver, number one running back overall that year, and yeah, immediately became a focal point for the Bills. So obviously it's a big trade. The second one in 2016 was the Saints to the Patriots.
I mean, the only person I can think that maybe did that move was Brandon Cooks, but he was never the number. Was it him?
It was him, and he finished wide receiver one overall in standard formats. Mainly because he thrived as the Brady's deep threat.
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, it wasn't necessarily that he's from a NFL perspective, he put up great numbers. But again, it's older than me. I didn't start watching it or playing fantasy then. But I'm going to assume that it was probably just for the fact that he was getting a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah, I mean, there's a
lot of yards
about like when certainly wide receivers when they get traded, like a good wide receiver gets traded from one place to another, it doesn't often work out. The one that I can kind of think was on a bit of a par was maybe D Hop when he went from the Texans to the Cardinals in his first few years. He was pretty. I mean, he was elite at the Texans, and then he was probably on par for at least a season or two. But I don't remember many who's traded from one to another who's then gone miles above. I mean, if you've got a top quality wide receiver, you don't often let them go.
Yeah, some examples of some very close ones. Tyreek Hill, his trade from the Chiefs to the Dolphins, he did finish wide receiver 2 that first year at the Dolphins. AJ Brown, again, Titans to the Eagles, finished top 5 wide receivers.
It's the worst trade in history, that one.
And then Stephon Diggs in 2020 from the Vikings to the Bills finished wide receiver 3 in PPR and wide receiver 1 in yardage. Again, we talked about those. Another one as well, Christian McCaffrey, when he was traded from the Panthers to the 49ers, though that was a mid-season trade. So, again, it's still Foles finished running back 2 in that year, 2022.
Who was the running back 1 in 22 for fantasy? Would it have been Austin Eckler?
Was it Jonathan Taylor?
It might have been, yeah, to be fair, JT had that monster year, didn't he, to be fair?
He'll be around that time.
See if I can find it if things all work. There we go.
I remember one of the first years I did fantasy, I got hooked in, like, just basically going off Montgomery. I got hooked into taking Austin Eckler at pick 5. It was basically terrible. Missed half the year, came back. The Chargers O-line was terrible, and I was like, great.
He had like 2 really good years. Eckler.
Good, yeah. It was off the back of them great years. I thought, oh, we're laughing here because he got so many receptions as well. I thought we're laughing, but evidently not.
Austin Eckler finished 4th in 2022. 4th in terms of running backs. The number 1 was Josh Jacobs. That was Josh Jacobs' massive year.
He led the league in rushing that year, didn't
he? Yeah, 1,600 yards. Derrick Henry was 3rd. Nick Chubb was 5th.
The good old days.
Barkley was 6th. I'm just trying to see where. Was maybe that the year where Taylor was injured? Oh no, here we go. Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, that was one of the 2 years where. So he had his monster year was 2021, where he finished running back 1, 499.5 points in PPR, and then he had 2 years where he only played 11 and 10 games, finished 33rd both years, and then 12th 2024, and then obviously 4th this year just gone. So yeah, one thing you always find is that trades don't tend to work. Like you said, you don't tend to trade away your star piece, especially when they've just become one of the best wide receivers, running backs, tight ends in the league. So it is rare, but the one thing that I will mention is that obviously, probably in terms of, obviously, because we're talking about winners and losers, someone that I was shocked at that was a massive winner in terms of his overall impact on fantasy was, let's see if I can find it, was actually obviously Christian McCaffrey, you mentioned, finishing RB2. Amari Cooper's in-year trade to the Cowboys. He ended up, from the trade onward, was a top 3 wide receiver pace. So after that trade, he was a top 3 wide receiver. Before that, and ended up finishing wide receiver 10. Before that, he obviously was not.
The Raiders, they had nothing, did they? And he was like, I think he was round about that year. Cooper was like great one week, non-existent the next, great one week, non-existent the next. And then he went to the Cowboys and he just was Mr. Consistent. So
yeah, and then the other one to mention, which I thought was an interesting one, was Kenyon Drake in 2019. So his trade from the Dolphins to the Cardinals, he started off pretty poor, and then from weeks 9 to 17, he was RB4 range, and ended up finishing RB16, which, I think for, especially if you think in fantasy, that's, if you can pick up someone off the wire, or in a late trade, to get someone that puts up running back 4 level points for 8 odd weeks, you're going to be laughing, aren't you? So
terrible trivia on Kenyon Drake. I actually drafted him the year after in a startup dynasty league in round 2, and he did nothing. I look back every now and then when you look at your old leagues and look back to the start, I was like, what was I thinking? But yeah.
Whilst we're on the topic of running backs, obviously we'll go back to the current trades and what we've seen. Probably one of the more interesting ones in terms of one that I wanted to get your opinions on. And again, I think there's a mixed bag in terms of how they'll benefit and not benefit. Is David Montgomery's trade from Detroit to Houston? Obviously, you've got Sonic no longer has his partner in crime in Knuckles. But what do we think of this trade in terms of benefits from a fantasy perspective? Because I think a lot of people probably still have a fair bit of stock in David Montgomery because he kind of, although he was running back two at the Lions, he was picking up crazy points because he was getting that many touchdowns and that many sort of hard yards.
Another one where he seems to always have his best weeks on fantasy against me. I had him do when he got his passing touchdown against the Bengals. He was playing against me that week. For fantasy, I'll be honest, I'm not too keen, but that's not because I don't like Monty. Monty is one of my favorite running backs to watch. He runs angry. It's like Tyler Algier. Like I love watching them sort of running backs, big angry runners. Like I love that. But kind of my main concerns are age isn't on Monty's side. He has just come off a season-ending surgery as well. I suppose the good thing for that is Woody Marks was in the blue tent literally every single week this year. So that is, kind of the upside is your usage is certainly going to go up. But I know I kind of asked for it earlier on, but it's a case of the Lions O-line wasn't great. The Texans O-line is 100 times worse. Like the Texans O-line is terrible. So kind of it's a case of, yes, his usage is going to go up, but is he going to be a 3-down back? He's got age concerns. He'll have injury concerns. I'm a bit on. I wouldn't even say on the fence. I don't like it, to be honest with you.
I like the trade for Monty himself. I think it sort of rejuvenates him and puts him probably back as an RB1 in a team. But yeah, I've got the worry that you're saying, and the offensive line and the Texans needs to be sorted big time. And what does he? I mean, what is he going to be? He's not going to. He's certainly not going to break into an RB1, a top 12 RB at all. But he could be in that sort of next range on because the Texans do seem to like to use the running backs quite a lot. Woody Marks had quite a few games where he would get around about the 20 carries. He might only end up with 60 yards, but is that on Woody Marks? Is that on the offensive line? Montgomery, in my opinion, is definitely a better runner than Woody Marks. And I think the intent from the Texans to go and get him as early as they did shows that they're probably not keen on giving the backfield to Woody Marks and they want to get somebody with experience in there. So I kind of think it sort of it's a little bit like the DJ Moore initial thing. It rejuvenates his fantasy career anyway, and certainly things like Reed could be a very useful, maybe first half of the season, later round running back pick. So there's a little bit of excitement there, but I do think I can see, especially with the age concerns, I can see his season sort of crescendoing and then dropping right off towards the back end, where then maybe the Texans start to bring Marks back in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, initially I'm a little bit. I think it's good for him, but I have my reservations on how high he can go. I think at very best he could be around about an RB18.
Something like that, yeah. He was running back, well, between 32 and 35 last year, but later he was in Jameer's shadow. That's another thing. Absolutely love it for Jameer. I don't think Jameer's stock could get higher. In terms of redraft leagues, he's going to go top 3.
The only thing is, could people potentially then decide to pick him at 1? That'd be the only thing, but
I think he's in the conversation now because I think a lot of people are saying, certainly in like a 1 QB league, that Bijan Robinson's the one.
Bijan's the number 1.
And then you're talking about Jamar Chase, maybe one or two. But I'm kind of like, I've never had Gibbs. I've never been able to draft him in any league I'm in. If he fell to the 3 or 4 and I happened to be there, I'd be all over that. I think he could be insane this year.
Yeah, with especially they've had a change, an offensive coordinator as well, haven't they? So again, new scheme, probably someone who maybe would more likely utilize Gibbs a bit more. I think one of the things that he suffered from, I think, under the last OC was they were trying to effectively use him as a third wide receiver.
Yeah.
As good as he is at catching and running with the ball, you're taking away a lot of his fundamentals in that he's a run flat running back, but you've got to give him the ball still. And I think that was one of the things. Although he still had a very good year, it could have been so much better.
So much better. Like you said, is with Jameer, he's one of like the very few running backs who is like a legit home run hitter. But any carry he has, he can take about 50, 60 yards. But obviously, I know, like you said, with the old offensive coordinator limited, well, using him more in the passing game, which is good for PPR, obviously. But you are taking away from what he's good at, really.
He also, like, I mean, look at Gibbs winning this one because Monty's a hell of a lot better than Isaiah Pacheco is, in my
Yeah,
opinion, anyway. And I think
I think in most opinion.
I think he could be end up getting around about 70, 75 to 80 snaps, percent of the snaps this season. If he does that, God, I'm scared of. I want him on my team. I don't know on anyone else's.
Yeah, he's certainly someone. He's always someone that I'm targeting in a lot of leagues. And I know that, I mean, as you'll come to learn, obviously, with me being a Longhorns, I am massive on Bijan Robinson. If I can get him anywhere, I will. The fact that they've obviously lost Algier, which I think is a massive, obviously talk about losing him in free agency. We'll talk more about him next week. But in terms of his value, he's finally. I've always said for years, if Bijan can be used the way that everyone knows he can be used, he is an outright wide running back one every day of the week. And especially now that he has Brian Robinson, which is going to be hilarious for drafts, seeing someone accidentally draft him over Bijan. But I think that this now, because of the fact that I think that Monty's now gone, it becomes less clear that Bijan is the outright number one.
It's number one.
Yeah, there's now two of them, and I think if you can look at the league and go, especially when you're looking at single QB leagues and you're thinking, it could be Gibbs, it could be Bijan. If you've got one of the first three picks, I think you're laughing because you know you're going to at least get at least one of those running backs.
100%. It's an easy pick now, isn't it? Like with the Monty leaving there, he's an easy pick now. The top three.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would say with if you look at Montgomery's years in terms of his finishing each year, even going back as far as 2021, he went from 19 to 24 in terms of running back position. He then went up to 17 when he joined the Detroit Lions. He dropped to 18, dropped to 27. It's like he kind of reaches back to where you kind of expect him in his first year and then slowly dies away. And my only concern is I don't see him. I can see him getting back to potentially, like we've said with a lot of these, they could get to like 18, 17, 18. But the problem is their floor is probably 27, 28 is where, and again, I'd maybe be looking at drafting him bottom end RB2 area, so like a 24th, like anywhere between like 18 to 24. If he's available, I'm probably going to pick him up. The only thing that probably leans me more towards him being 18-ish is the fact that he is RB1 now. And that always is a massive pull. We always want players who are going to be starting as the number one running back in the league. But I do think he benefits from being part of a handcuff, and I think that's the problem.
Yeah, I do think he'll be there, though. I think he'll get glossed over in a lot of drafts. I think younger running backs who probably have a harder journey to get to the like 18 to 20 will go ahead of him. And I think he'll just sit there in your maybe like round 6, 7, 8. He could just be sat there and you'd be like a bit like James Conner has been in recent years. Like he just sits there and performs. I know Conner got injured last year, but he'll be there and people will forget about him because he's the old and the tired and people just pass him on. So I do think he'll be there, and I think he could be a great value in redraft leagues this year.
Yeah. Right, we'll move on to the last two, and I think these are more just interesting, potentially funny ones that we can talk about. Firstly, we'll talk about Justin Fields. So you'll probably be in a similar boat to me. Probably probably not me because I immediately didn't like him, but a lot of people when he came out of the draft, he went high in a lot of leagues. Like in terms of rookie drafts, he was easily, I would say, top 3 off the board. People were high on Justin Fields. I'm probably the craziest story I've got is someone messing on in the league. We wasn't the most serious of leagues, but they basically traded 3 first round, 3 second rounds to get Justin Fields. Crazy value. I think there was a bit of tomfoolery with it, but still quite funny. Obviously, he's now gone to the Kansas City Chiefs from the Jets. He's obviously not being brought in to be the starter or long-term starter. But is this a win for Justin Fields? From a fantasy perspective, I think probably
it has to be because he was buried at the Jets, and that's sort of not a good place for anyone to be. Like, if you can't be the starter in the Jets, then are you even in the NFL really? But I mean, realistically, is he going to play? He's probably just if he does play, it'll be 1 or 2 games at the start of the season, and I'm pretty sure Andy Reid's going to be handing the ball off a lot. He's going to be playing it safe, not asking him to go more than 120 yards in the air, asking him to run 50, 60 on the ground, and just try and get the Chiefs to get a couple of wins. Realistically, he's not relevant for fantasy. Like people thought when he went to the Jets, he'll be the starter, and he can run on the ground, and he can be this mobile quarterback, and he can be this athlete. I mean, at the Bears, he had a few games of 140, 150 yards on the ground, and look, we saw nothing. He had the opportunity, and some games he struggled to get to 100 yards passing. Um, I can't see it anymore. Andy Reid's just gone insurance, hasn't he? He's just gone, I need somebody who can fill in there for maybe a game or two while Patrick Mahomes is figuring out whether or not he can play. But and realistically, you'd probably want Holmes in a wheelchair behind centre than Fields. So I think it's fun. I think it helps him. I think if you've got him in Dynasty, try and capitalise and maybe trade him for a second round draft pick, maybe. But yeah, I think realistically, he's not a fantasy. He's not relevant for fantasy. Although anyone going at the Chiefs, it sort of like sparks a little bit of more value to them.
I mean, if anyone can get the best out of Justin Fields, it's probably someone like an Andy Reid,
Yeah,
realistically. I
yeah.
think that's probably the only saving grace is that when he was at the Bears, I think he was probably most of the head coaches, their defensive head coaches. The Bears are renowned for generally having crap quarterbacks. I think they've still to this day have not had a regular season 4,000 plus yard in throwing, which feels a bit unfair on Caleb because he got very, very close, but still haven't had one. I think they probably will next year. But obviously, then going to the Jets. I mean, it's the Jets. Can't really. You can't expect the world from him there. I think this is his last opportunity to maybe showcase what he could be. But realistically, he's a backup. That's his role now, and he's probably going to have to accept that. The only thing that I could see him potentially being involved with is maybe some like gadget plays where, like sort of similar to how they used to use Taysom Hill, where they would just throw him in plays and he would just either run for his life or do something crazy. You could maybe see Justin Fields being brought in for that and just kind of, throwing a few different plays and, maybe on a 4th down, bringing him in to be the tush push guy, just to kind of keep Mahomes safe and fit rather than being risked to be that guy. Maybe those are the sort of things you could see him being brought in, but yeah, I think anyone, for me, and this is what I tend to do with a lot of these backups, is I try and use them as draft capital to the team that has the starter. So whoever has Mahomes, I'm looking to trade him to Mahomes' team for a maybe sort of like a lower level wide receiver and maybe a pick if I can get a late pick or something like that. Because again, it's better in being on that team, and that someone like that's probably going to more likely trade for him than trying to trade him elsewhere. And it's one less player off your team.
Yeah, like I'm kind of in the same boat with you too. I think it's great, like you said, he gets to go to the Chiefs, gets to learn from Andy Reid, sit behind Mahomes, whatever. I just don't think it really has any fantasy value. If Mahomes misses time, which now looks unlikely because he's Superman apparently, like I said, the way I look at it is if Mahomes misses time, it's not good for Rasheed Rice, it's not good for Xavier Worthy, it's not good for Travis Kelce. I mean, it's fun. I mean, I have to admit, Justin Fields and Ken Walker play actions do sound incredibly fun, but in terms of fantasy value, it's just meh. Like you said, it's kind of in Dynasty, you try and ship him to someone who has Mahomes just for the insurance. In terms of redraft, I can't see him having any value at all, to be honest with you.
No, he's only valuable in a super flex as well, potentially a dynasty super flex.
Yeah.
If you're a single quarterback dynasty, you're picking somebody else off you're picking a Jacoby Brissett over him
Yeah.
every day of the week. But yeah, I think fun. I mean, I guess if you're talking about Justin Fields in NFL terms, I guess it's nice to go to the Chiefs. And Andy Reid could use him, like you've said. But yeah,
he might actually win a ring.
well, yeah,
He
Hopefully
actually,
not.
you know, if you want to put, if you're a betting man, you might want to go, might stick a bet on Justin Fields to win a
yeah.
Super Bowl ring.
Super Bowl
I
winning
guess as
quarterback
well,
Justin
like
Fields.
if you're the Chiefs, if you're Andy Reid and let's say Mahomes isn't quite Superman and he needs a few more weeks and they go 2-0, then you've got a bit more insurance. You can probably give him a couple more weeks. But yeah, realistically, when nobody's played at that stage is where you trade him. If he starts week 1, you get him traded straight away.
And given the fact we're obviously talking about Justin Fields being traded from the Jets have brought in their QB1 in, return home for a Geno and going back to the Jets.
Is this the way you end the episode? Because what do we say about this?
And we don't know. I thought I'd throw this one in, and I think there's a lot of winners in this.
I do as well.
And none of them are the Jets. To a certain degree, I do think the Jets win here. They couldn't get any worse in terms of QBs than what they've had recently. Geno, although he didn't work out for him in Las Vegas, if he can just get to any sort of level close to what he was at Seattle, he's a competent QB. He's not someone that's going to, he's probably going to be someone that you pick up late in a super flex league. You throw him in or he's like a third QB as like a backup when you need him. He's always going to be that. But if he can get some levels back to like he was at Seattle, that could really benefit someone like a Garrett Wilson, because I think the struggle that we've always had, and you probably guys agree, Garrett Wilson is a fantastic wide receiver in the NFL, but he has just had zero luck with having QBs.
Yeah.
And I think, he could really benefit in terms of probably someone who you could probably wait a while to pick him up, but could have some much better upside now because of the fact that if he can have Geno, to me, he's a system quarterback. If you've got the right system for him, I think he does do well to a certain degree. And that the person who's going to benefit from the most from that will be Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, with the fact that they've lost, they kept on Breece Hill again, Breece Hall, sorry, or Bryce Hall again, because they've kept him, haven't they?
Yeah, he got tagged.
Yeah, I thought so.
And then he was sat on Twitter moaning about it, but
yeah. So again, he's someone who may benefit as well, because again, he's probably going to have the ball handed off a fair bit to him. Again, he can catch the ball. He could benefit from that in a way. But I do think it is, given the position that the Jets are in terms of drafting the quarterback class that we have for this year, I could see this being a good move for him in terms of getting him back to a bottom end wide QB2.
Yeah.
And also then benefiting those around him. I think for the Raiders, again, they've already decided that they've got their QB1.
Yeah.
They've now brought in Kirk Cousins, which I think is another fantastic move. The Raiders are going to benefit.
Yeah.
they're probably going to have. Hopefully, they can have a fit Brock Bowers for a whole year this time. You know, he could. I mean, he managed to do things with even the worst of QBs that they've had, and was it Aidan O'Connell
Aidan
and
O'Connell, yeah.
the other guy that was there.
Gardner Minshew.
God, yeah, it was Gardner Minshew as well.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So he's even better. He can. I mean, he's one of the best tight ends in the league. So I do think it's a good move overall. Do I think that it drastically improves his draft stock? Absolutely not. He's still bottom end tier in terms of the bottom 8 running quarterbacks in the league. But would I pick him up if I needed someone? Maybe.
Yeah.
I kind of think the same. I mean, like going to the Jets is never good, but I'd say worst case scenario is Geno's as bad as he was last year. And that wasn't good viewing, but he was still 3,000 yards. A lot of like some of these backups that were in there won't have done that. He nearly got 20 touchdowns. That needs to be more. But like, so again, do think Garrett Wilson benefits because at least, I mean, who was throwing the ball last year? Brady Cook, was it the rookie at the end of the season?
Towards the end of the season, yeah. And
I think they had about
Tyrod Taylor as well.
Yeah, Tyrod Taylor, Justin Fields pretty much lost his place from the very start.
And to be fair, kind of touching on it for Fields, Garrett Wilson did miss a lot of time last year, so that probably didn't help for him, but ultimately it was rubbish. There's no kind of two ways around it.
I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't by choice.
Yeah.
I think he was watching it and going, nah, I'm out. But yeah, I mean, Geno, like I think he got, like last year, he got a lot of stick. But if you remember, if we were talking about this time last year, the trade, I think he was traded from the Seahawks to the Raiders.
Yeah.
Everyone was saying what a great trade that was. So everybody had high hopes for him. Then, quarterbacks get a down year. I don't expect him to be anything decent, but in a superflex league, if you can go and grab him now, I've got him in a couple of leagues, and people are saying that they would only give me a third round draft pick. Now, I'd take a third round draft pick for a QB free just to sit there for the odd game that you need him. But yeah, you've not got high hopes. Wilson, I've got a little bit more hope in now. I think Wilson might have a reasonable year, but he's limited with what he's got around him.
And again, there's no real wide receivers around. I mean, obviously you've got Adonai Mitchell who has shown sparks.
I do think they draft one though. I do think they draft one round one
with the 2 picks. Yeah.
I mean, you'd like to think they would, but I mean, personally, if it was me, I wouldn't bother. I'd use those picks to build your offensive line because their offensive line is one of the worst in the leagues.
Yeah.
So I'd probably be looking at building the O-line a bit more. I mean, I know they've got obviously Fashion who didn't have a great year, and they've got
member of bright spots, but for the most part, the line is rubbish.
Yeah, so I'd maybe be looking at building on that, maybe using that because again, they could probably pick up a fairly decent. I mean, you've still got the likes of Chris Brazzell, you've got Chris Bell there.
Yeah.
Conception may fall into the second. I mean,
they will. I think there'll be either one of Boston, Cooper Jr. or Conception. Naturally, I think they'll go in. We just did that mock draft, and I think I think Boston would have fell, and a couple of others would have fell to the second round. So I think they could do that. Wait, and you are right. You've got to help. You've got to help reset things. And if you don't have an offensive line, you could put Josh Allen behind there, and he'd not have a great time with it. So you've got to really sort that out. And if they don't, the Jets are going to continue on this trend. And if they're looking for the quarterback next year, which I think they are by bringing in Geno now, then sort your line out, help him out, and then bring your rookie in next year, and maybe hold Geno for another year if he does okay.
Yeah, and I think that's how I would do it. And again, the benefit that they've got is they've got two very good running backs in Hall and Allen, and Isaiah Davis isn't bad. He's a good third wide running back. Garrett Wilson obviously is Garrett Wilson. Adonai Mitchell is good. They have, I think, was it last year they drafted Isaiah Williams as well. So again, he's maybe someone who could maybe now step into that wide receiver 3 role. So I think there's weapons there. They've obviously got Mason Taylor tight end.
Give him a chance to develop too.
There's plenty there to target him. I would rather them focus on building that O-line more, using that capital to be able to bring in and build that. Obviously, we know they're going to be bringing in it's going to be Arvell Reese.
Yeah.
At 2. they've got is it the 16th pick?
16th,
I
yeah.
I would probably say that they would go probably a tackle at that position. I mean, you're probably looking at Spencer Farnu, maybe someone like a Caleb Lomu, maybe potentially around that point. Even, I mean, I don't see it happening, but even like a Munro Freeling could potentially drop that far. So that there's more tackles that are going to be good at those positions. That I think there's enough wide receivers that they're going to have the 34th pick. They could easily pick up a very decent wide receiver at
Wide
that
receiver
point and
there.
build it there.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, that's how I would do it. So I suppose final question really, who out of the trades that we've obviously talked about, who do you think has won the most out of it all? Whether it be the individual players or the team around them from a fantasy perspective, who's won?
I mean, I'm kind of torn because, like I said, I'm not too keen on the Monty trade, but I think kind of just from a usage point alone, he's kind of like the winner in that sense. If you're looking at the wide receivers, like I said, I've kind of got a neck and neck, somewhere sitting between wide receiver 22 and 28 coming up for the season. I think DJ Moore's kind of now in a position where he wasn't better than Dunze last year. They said now obviously he's not with Baden or Colston Loveland either. I think he's kind of in a position where he is the clear one, but he's a clear one in an offense where we don't use a clear one. It's everybody eats. It's kind of, it can be double days. Khalil Shakir has 8 receptions, or I'm not going to say Keon Coleman ever has 8 receptions, or 2 receptions, or 3, or whatever. But do you know what I mean? There's going to be days where, like we said last year, we see Brandon Cooks towards the end of the year be really good for the Bills. It's kind of, I don't think there's any guarantee with any of the trades we spoke about. But in terms of upside, I probably will just lean DJ Moore.
Yeah, I'm probably going to say DJ Moore as well. I'm gonna be a little bit optimistic and say I think he can. I think Josh Allen will start to use a number one, and I think it'll be DJ Moore. I think a little bit of the dig stuff's coming into my mind, but I think my overall winner, I mentioned it before, and he didn't get traded, was Tyler Warren. And I know that's a little bit off topic, but yeah, DJ Moore out of the people who were traded. Probably the Broncos benefit the most out of the players moving. But yeah, and then Tyler Warren as a like by proxy, I think was the biggest winner.
And who was sort of the biggest losers? I think for me,
I
I
thought,
think Michael. I obviously we'll come on to talk about the Dolphins because they are the biggest losers in this.
yeah,
In terms of the individual players, for me, I think Michael Pittman's the biggest loser. I think it's not even really that close. He's going into a situation where he's at best going to be wide receiver 2, and realistically, I think he's gone there because he knows he can be a solid wide receiver 2 there, and it's not a big issue.
yeah.
It does feel like a downgrade for him, and it feels like a downgrade in terms of fantasy as well, for him.
Totally.
But obviously, the biggest losers, I think, out of everything are the Miami Dolphins.
As always.
Yeah, can I? So Malik Willis, what's he thinking right now? He possibly was the winner of the free agency. I know we'll talk about more next week, but like at one point I was like, coming in, starting job, Jalen Waddle, like draft capital could bring somebody else in, and now he's looking around a receiver room of who's in there, that Tutu Atwell, Jalen Tolbert, Malik Washington. Like he's looking around going, who's going to catch this ball for him? So yeah, just because Waddle's gone, for me, he's the biggest loser, unfortunately. But he will be given time because we're paying the 2 attacks, which is going to give him. He's probably going to get 2 seasons no matter what. And the new head coach and new GM they're going to be given time to rebuild, and they've obviously brought Willis in, thinking he's going to be the core of the offense. So saying that he's the biggest loser currently, but he's going to be afforded a lot of time, I think.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's spot on, really. Like you said, it's kind of he's gone to a situation where he's got no real talent at receiver or any kind of catching threats. The Dolphins might address it, but kind of the good thing for Willis' side is you have mentioned you've got a new GM and head coach. They've both been in Green Bay with him. He's going to have time. It's not like it's just going to be 1 year, unless kind of you are the worst team in the league, which is possible, maybe more than likely next year. Unless kind of you think, right, we'll take a quarterback in the first round next year. He's going to have 2 years. You're paying him for 2 years. It's kind of,
realistically,
Go on, sorry.
If you tank this year, you're looking at potentially Jeremiah Smith next year.
Yeah, well, I
That's a
mean,
massive upgrade.
yeah, and like, who knows? There's a lot of potentially bad teams out there. So, but yeah, the Dolphins are not going to have anywhere near a winning record, so they've got to capitalize on that. And I do think Willis he looks a good quarterback. He looks like he's learned a lot in Green Bay, but he's got to have people who are willing to catch the ball for him. And right now, it's going to be like a bit of a mishmash of what you'd class as our wide receiver threes and fours who are going to be catching the ball for
Mm.
him. So they need to get
Yeah,
it right.
I was just looking at your wide receivers: Malik Washington, Terrace Marshall, Jalen Tolbert, Tutu Atwell, Taj Washington,
Yeah.
AJ Henning, and Theo Weiss. Oh, and you've got great Dulcich there as well. So
Yeah,
who's got
he's signed as the tight end. He re-signed, so
yeah,
yeah, you just reeled off a list of elites there. So I
Yeah, I
mean,
was going to say, if you get your pads on, Liam, mate, you might get a game if you head down to South
I
Beach.
know, yeah, I might go down just catch a ball outside the stadium, see if there's room. But yeah, we'll see. Draft day.
brilliant. Well, that was a great chat, guys. Obviously, if you're wanting to follow us, obviously do please follow us on all the social medias. They'll all be linked, or they'll all be down below in the details, whatever the description. That's what it's called, the description, along with obviously the AAW Network's social media pages. We have a free Discord that you're able to join. Again, chat with some of the guys in here. Speak about everything. And yeah, hope next week we'll be looking to moving on to free agency, which I think there should be a bit more in terms of individual players to talk about. I think, in terms of the ones that have gone in free agency, but also those who are still available going forward. So, like I say, follow the guys on social media, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your the weekend, guys. Enjoy the Easter holidays. Hopefully, you've all got great plans with the family, doing something, or if you're not and you watch football or anything like that, enjoy. Obviously we've got the March Madness as well. So if you're enjoying that, that'll be on as well.